Scotland as a nation proudly stand. We will march beneath our banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. To the world we bid a welcome in 1,000 different ways. We will toast to long lost friendships as we build our better days. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. We are all the heroes of Scotland. We're a nation hand in hand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street, are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum.
Good evening, folks. Not dead yet, so I take it that's got to be our Sensum. Good evening, Sensum.
Hello, John. Hope everybody's well.
Yeah, well, I wish I hadn't waited until the usual time to send out emails and then discover I can't do it. Good evening, William. Yeah, that's better. How you doing, William?
Well. Not bad, John. Not bad. Yeah, I did wonder. I never seen any email, and I thought, I must have done something wrong.
No. It's well, it used to be straightforward. Now it shows you how often I use it. But I went there to do it, and it doesn't work. They've changed the whole system, and I have no idea how to use it.
Well, I don't know when you sent it out, but I think it was on Muriel Gray on your video when mine came through. And I was able to drop the link in when I saw that William hadn't got it, which will be quite handy because if Eki turns up, he'll probably need that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't know. I mean, they've obviously, StreamYard's obviously changed the whole arrangement. But I don't yet know how this new arrangement works. It used to be straightforward, this software. But every time they add something, it's getting more and more complex. I don't know how you feel about it, you guys, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, it's always an improvement, even though it doesn't work as well as the last one.
Exactly. And just for the record, folks, you were all right last night. The stream did get blocked. And not just blocked, but blocked across the entire face of the world, I might add. So that's another hard lesson about not playing other people's music. So it happened last night, but I don't know if this happens to you guys, but where I was sitting, nothing changed. I can still see people in the chat. Nothing changed on the screen. So I'm busy sitting here talking, so I think. And suddenly everyone in the chat's telling me I've disappeared. So it looks as though the copyright thing is gone. They're just going to block you now if you do it.
It did me on a live stream when I did my original John Williams video, because I was obviously streaming other YouTube videos, mainly from some wonderful orchestras that were recreating some of John Williams stuff. And for some reason, when I started playing an actual orchestra playing it, so it wasn't like it was the actual theme tune or the soundtrack. It was a live orchestra playing it. It was the Home Alone theme tune, and that started playing, and I noticed that the YouTube screen went black, and I always, whenever I'm using StreamYard, even though I'm speaking live into StreamYard, I have the YouTube window running as well. So I saw straight away that it had gone black, and then when you stop playing it, after about 2 or 3 minutes, it comes back, or you're allowed to stream again. But you do get it wasn't a strike; it just says a copyright, whatever it was.
Yeah. And
on that first time, it wasn't a strike, copyright strike. It was just a copyright notice or whatever, saying this is somebody else's music that you're streaming live and you're not really supposed to do that. Fair enough. So after I stopped it, a few minutes later, it's carried on streaming. So I went to the next one, started playing that, which might have been the Indiana Jones one. Once again, a live orchestra. They're probably the film symphony orchestra, who was superb. And like I say, a minute in or so, it went black again. And in the meantime, and I haven't even checked it today. I'm being remiss because I didn't get in till late. But in my Telegram stream, there must have been about 3 or 4 messages of one of that saying, "Oh, you're gonna get banned. You're gonna get banned." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I don't know what it was back then. Those whole 300 viewers or whatever it was at the time." Yeah, yeah, but never mind. Yeah, so they did. Well, I don't know if it blocked your stream forever, but for me, as soon as I stopped playing it, after about a minute or so, it realised and then let me carry on.
Well, he is here. He's in the chat, is our Ricky. So I'll put in the post again, the link again. By the way, I sent some. Have you heard from Toffee today?
Well, I've just said I haven't checked my Telegram, and I only got in contact with him on Telegram because I know he was having some bloody. He was elephant's trunk doing.
He was on here last night. He wasn't complaining to me, by the way. He was just reporting and saying that was him finished. He was going off into the wilderness, never to be seen again.
All right.
I'm dressing it up a wee bit.
Well, like I say, I haven't checked my Telegram. I know there were, because he did have a sort of a pub. He had a private Telegram that he just used to contact myself and DJ and 42 and the like.
Sure.
And then he set up his own proper sort of Telegram, which I suppose is like a cheaper version of Twitter or whatever it is. I've got one, but it's just, it's just posting stuff. It's mainly me forwarding stuff that other people bring to the attention. So, no, I haven't checked my Telegram yet, so I don't know anything about it. But when he did it the last time, he just deleted his channel and didn't say that. And I'm like, where's he gone? So if he's done that again,
well,
chances are there'll be like a load of messages saying, I've had enough of this. And then because I haven't seen them, it'll just be deleted. I'll just see this channel has been deleted.
Well, apparently he was on Telegram and he took a lot of abuse from... Well, he didn't name the people he took abuse from. He just mentioned the organizations that they were attached to. And said that was unfinished, and everyone, of course, was saying no. Take the weekend off, calm down, and I'm saying to him, go into the wilderness over the weekend with your dogs and just cool down, and you'll be fine. But I thought he might have, dropped a note to you. That's why I'm asking.
He probably has, but I haven't checked my Telegram.
Good evening, Eki.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, folks, with that all over with, Steve is saying he's okay, so I assume Steve's had some kind of communication with him. He really was upset last night, though, and I can tell you that.
I did tell him to put a full page notice in the Telegram if he does go off piece. Just to let everybody know.
Anyway, we are here to review a film called The Wanderers, suggested by our friend William. Yeah. So I'll start with you, William. A quick intro. Did you enjoy the film? And I assume you did because you suggested it.
Yeah, no surprises here. It's a film that means quite a lot to me. So hence why I picked it. I love it. I've not got a bad word to say about it. So
well, that's the
you won't get much from me.
So I'll see you next week then. Okay. Eki, did you like this film or did you not like this film?
I liked a lot of the tone and I liked a lot of the themes because I'm a hardline structuralist. I didn't like the plot, but and of course there's also this sort of latent nostalgia for late 70s Americana that I do kind of like. Yeah, it was what do you call it? It was supposed to be a period piece about the early 1960s. This is very much the fad back in those days. What was the movie? American Graffiti from George Lucas. Yeah, like they were all about 1970s Americana for whatever reason, and rather in the 70s they were all about 1950s Americana. So, I get it. I understand what they're going for, but anyhow, in general, I liked it.
Good. That leaves you, Sensum. What was your initial thoughts, my friend?
Well, first things first. I've just checked my Telegram.
Yeah.
Just to be sure, and it says, where is it? Oh, it did say somewhere, but it said Toffee had left the group. Oh yeah, it is there. Toffee has left the group.
Oh dear.
So he's deleted his channel again without out,
but with Steve there, I put that up. Yeah, the channel's gone.
But yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. As regards to the film, I can remember. I remember distinctly in the, because this was a late 70s film, and obviously we didn't have video cassette recorders, but I do remember vividly the adverts for this one and also a film that came out about the same time called The Warriors, both about New York gangs, slightly different tack, obviously, because The Warriors was a bit more of a
same year.
Wandering back to trying to get back home type thing, with all of a little bit like After Hours, a sort of similar one where you're literally just trying to get back home and avoid all the nutters. So that was The Warriors, but also The Wanderers. I remember that because of that whistle call, the sort of little call that they had between themselves. And even though there was no chance we'd go and see that film, when we were at school and that, we used to sort of do those whistles, and much to the chagrin of the teachers. So I do remember, but I remember watching both of those films together, probably be about 1994, when one of my mates did have a video cassette player. And so we got both The Warriors and The Wanderers on the same day and watched them back to back. And I remember thoroughly enjoying both. And I've watched The Warriors recently, probably because my lad hadn't seen it. So it's a great film. I want to watch that. So we watched that together, and he said, "Oh yeah, it was really good." And that was the same. Must have been within a year of each other being made, and that still holds up.
It was in the same year.
Oh well, there you go then.
It came out. Yeah.
Well, they were released in the same year, but from a production standpoint, it could have been like anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half difference from a filming and production standpoint.
Well, it says the same year, so
yeah.
I'm only talking about when it was recorded. That's all.
No, well, anyway, I'm talking about when I saw it, which was 1984, and I remember watching both of them with fondness. And like I say, recently, probably within the last 6 months, I've watched The Warriors again. It still holds up today. Alas, The Wanderers, slightly more dated in my opinion. Because there were, like I say, there were certain elements that I've forgotten about, but it was, it's still a good film, still of its time, and yes, very much Americana, as Eki was saying, but it hasn't aged as well as The Warriors, in my opinion. Still a great cast, still great actors across the board, still very humorous moments in it, as what I remember, but it hasn't, in my opinion, dated as well.
I think that's true. I would agree with that. It certainly hasn't stood up to the test of time. Okay, we'll start with Eki this time. Is there anything about the film you didn't like, and why?
Again, structuralist. I didn't like the plot, only in as much as there were ideas that they were trying to express, and I don't think that they did a good job of it. So there's a lot of, there's a bunch of nostalgia baiting through the entire movie, and there is discussion, just as Sensen was talking about, with the gangs, gang warfare, and so on and so forth. And that was very prescient in a way. So the movie was put out in 79. So production probably happened in 78, probably, which means that they were doing all of the writing in like late 78 to late 77 to mid 78. And they would have been basing this off of their experiences from the mid 60s to the mid 70s. And what did we see back in America from the mid 60s into the mid 70s? Huge transformations in the populace, huge transformations. And even the latent, there were so for example, I forgot the names of the gangs, but there's the black gang, and there's the Italian gang as the two main gangs. And the Italians would have come like less than a century before the movie was made, and they were mostly assimilated into American culture, but not completely. They were still somewhat outsiders. And same thing with the black gangs. Though of course they have like a history of a couple hundred years of non-assimilation. But interestingly, what did you see? What were the other two main gangs that were featured? Well, I suppose three gangs. I forget the enemy gang name, the evil ones. But the other two were the skinheads and the Wongs.
The
And
Baldies.
what's that?
The Baldies.
The Baldies, yes. So the Baldies were I think they were supposed to be just regular Americans, white America, I think. As where the Wongs, they were newcomers. They would have been newcomers in New York back in the 1970s. They would have been very unusual relative to standard white Americans and the Italians who had been there for several decades, but they're still, they're half in, half out. And I think it's interesting that they were talking about those themes, and they were talking about the differences between these groups. And the end of the movie basically ended up being a can't we all just get along kind of a deal. I think that this was interesting because I agree and disagree at the same time. There's no reason for anyone, just because you are a part of a group that is not a part of another group doesn't mean that there needs to be hostilities. I think that it's quite reasonable to be amiable to outgroup. I actually think that's the case. And in as much as the ending of the movie was about some kind of, even if not camaraderie, if nothing else, just an understanding that we don't have to fight each other. I liked that theme. I actually thought I liked it. I like that kind of stuff. All the way down to, I forget the character's name, but the guy who ends up getting married at the very end, he brings in Pee-wee into the party, which I thought was sort of a nice gesture. I liked those sorts of things. The only problem is that it was, throughout the rest of the movie, it was all over the map in terms of who was doing what and why. And I actually think that the movie would have done much better if they had simply focused on one or two characters and actually made the entire movie just about those one or two characters. I was, I guess I can get into it later, so I won't worry about it now. But anyhow, the long and the short of it is, really cool themes, in my opinion. Richie, thank you very much, Richie. Really cool, and actually, this much I will say, I think that the movie would have done very well if they had only focused on Richie and basically not nixed everyone else, but if they had reduced focus on everyone else, and if they made it only Richie's story. But yeah, that's basically my only real criticism, is great themes, and I feel like it could have gone through a little more focus in terms of the writing. But that's just my own opinion.
Okay, Sensor, how about yourself? Is there anything about this film you didn't like, and if so, why?
Well, it's going to sound contradictory because it was a really good. It was because I do remember it back in the day really disturbing me. But that initial encounter with Karen Allen, who's driving in a car, and they say, "Oh, you got to follow," and they end up driving into, from complete daylight into this zombie zone, New York, with these zombie people. Sort of, they're not zombies clearly, but these look like they could be. It looked like a scene from Walking Dead in effect. And I remember that creeping me out. And then when, sort of throughout the film, and when one of the young lads gets effectively killed by them when they're chasing him, and that creeped me out because you've got no you know, and this criticism, there's no reference point as to where these Egypts have come from, or, you know, it's as though there's this sort of section of New York that nobody else in the world knows of, this zombie section of New York where these nutters live. And then all of a sudden they're this massive part of this. Well, they turn up and you freak out because obviously you think, geez, what's going on here? Because that's that same sort of uneasy feeling, that sort of being chased down with lots of people that you got in the likes of the Warriors and the likes of After Hours.
Yeah.
But then when I was watching the film, I was like, but where these come from? You know, what's their point? This is like, you know, they're not part of the, you know, the gang sort of, like, you know, the rundown of the gangs. Like, you know, you've got the ones that are great at a bit of chap slapping and sort of, you know, chapsacky, wah. And you got the Baldies with old Grossberger there off, you know, of what was that Wilder and Pryor film? Stir Crazy. That was Grossberger, wasn't it? The big, I forgot the big bloke, and that was Grossberger off Stir Crazy. But then you got, like, say, you got these, and it was like really unnerving. Oh, bloody hellfire! And then, you know, for no apparent reason, in their catchment area, these zombie idiots are there again. You know, because this bloke sort of just had an argument with, you know, the Wanderers, and the Baldies have buggered off because they've signed up to the Marines, and then just left. Just said, yeah, go on then, we'll go and do that then. So he's left on his own. So he's like literally 2 seconds away from his own sort of area, his own patch. And yet these zombie idiots were there. And yet on that initial encounter, you know, they had to drive halfway across the city to find that creepy area. And that was, so while I like the fact that those creepy buggers were in it, it didn't really come together particularly well. But when you're a kid, you don't think about that. You just think, oh, them creepy buggers. Imagine if you were in the street with them, you'd shit yourself. But anyway, yeah. But so, like I say, one of the most memorable bits for me is that creepy buggers. But one of the sort of, you know, it's not really disappointing. Just it wasn't very cohesive as to where these people come from. How you know how the sort of authorities didn't even know they were there. You know, there's this zombie culture, this zombie blocks of New York, or whatever you want to call it. It just didn't make
It was
any
English
sense.
immigrants.
No, they were Scottish. No, I don't know. That's. But like I say, you know, it was. But it then turns out that they are effectively aliens, aren't they? You know, and I say that in a paradoxical sense because, we've got this big fight, you know, between because that's the teacher bit. You know, let's go through some names you can call each other. Right then. So at the end of this, they have a bit of right. Well, at the back of that, we're going to kick hell out of each other. Yeah, that's right. Get it on that football pitch. So they effectively have to turn up, effectively like, you know, ET, like these aliens that are bad to everybody. Oh, we need to come together to fight these zombie squad type affairs because, you know, they outnumber us individually. But if we all get together in this, you know, the world is a big onion, you know, isn't it great? You know, different layers of this one world, one people onion, then we'll be able to defeat them. And the chances are, they'd have been better off joining the zombies. You know what I mean? If you look at how it worked out.
Numerically. What have you got to say about that, William? This scene that, if you haven't seen the film before, as I hadn't seen it before, I thought at that point the film was going to take an absolute turn into some kind of, perhaps not zombie, but some kind of creepy horror type movie.
Yeah.
And it seems totally out of place, that whole section.
Mm-hmm.
As though, I can imagine them on set perhaps thinking about, we could do this and let's shoot this scene at night and somebody will die and we can get into this other stream. And then, you know, perhaps the executive producer came along and having seen the rushes or something and said, no, guys, that won't work. Just get back to where you were supposedly going. and left this thing in. It just seems totally out of place, that whole section. Don't you think?
Yeah, I know what you mean. When I recall watching it for the first time, probably in about 1996, maybe, or 95, possibly, but just a young boy, about 9, 10. And I do recall watching that scene in particular and finding it a bit like a horror movie almost, which
that's
is
what I
completely
thought.
different. Yeah, completely different from the rest of the movie. It's a kind of, a lot of it to me, I felt a kind of good, feel good factor. And in the end, they all kind of went their own way and got on with it. Of course, the guy, he did die by, well, he couldn't hang on and let go and fell to his death, but it was caused by the creepy zombie gang, the Ducky Boys, of course, who, like Streaky said, they were seemingly a real gang in New York or wherever it was, but I don't think they were called that in the book, the original book.
Right.
I think they had a different name.
So it comes from a novel then?
Yeah. So maybe, I mean, I'm unsure if they adapted it in any way, but it is based on a book as far as I'm aware, unless someone can correct me, but I believe it is.
Okay. It just seemed an odd sequence to be there. I mean, they could have had the guy die, even in the way that he did, but it's just the whole way it was shot with all that supposed fog and everything. To me, I thought, oh, suddenly we're going from this lightweight gang movie into some kind of horror thing, and then it just disappeared again. Even if they had consistently used that atmosphere for that gang, but we don't see them again like that. Just didn't make any sense to me, I'm sorry to say. Anyway, we'll start with Sensum this time. So, for you, Sensum, who, if any, were the standout performers in this piece?
I think that the sort of the one who was always getting beat up by his dad for not, because his dad was this sort of Charles Atlas type, liked to think of himself as being a bit of a hard man, and all he did was sort of constantly pick on his kid. I thought he played a brilliant role, and also the young man who sort of came to that area late, and his man was a bit of a lush, and obviously the other fella's dad was knocking her off, as you saw in it. I thought those two guys for different reasons played really good roles. Ken Wall, pretty much what you'd expect. Karen Allen, pretty much what you'd expect. I thought the girl who was going to eventually marry her dad was a good role. I thought he was. I thought he was really good. Who else was there? I thought in there. No, I still think that young lad, and I thought, because I'd forgotten about that moment in the film, and now I recollect it is quite poignant because I remember, even as a kid, watching it, and they've just gone through this massive scrap victory against the zombie squad, so to speak. And his dad's been bashing hell out of him as well, getting in, and his lad thinks to himself, "Oh, great! Finally got a bit of camaraderie going with me dad." And he goes, "Yeah, Dad," and he goes tear assing down, and his dad just turns around and gives him a left hook in the guts. It's like, bastard! He's never had a good word to say about that lad, and give him his fair due. He's stuck in as much as anybody else, and his dad still couldn't give him one consolatory moment. I thought that was really, but like I say, that young lad and the sort of the new guy, the matchstick bloke, I thought they played very, very good parts in the remit that they were given. And then just for the comedic value, I thought the dad was brilliant because he was, he wasn't comedian. It was just comedy in the roles he got because he was like a some not mafia, but he was that way on. Do you know what I mean? He was sort of a bit of a heavy, and the bowling, the bowling ball scene, and it's just anybody might think you're professional bowlers because you've been rumbled. So little things like that. It's very, very.
I mean, that
good.
whole section was almost a lift from The Hustler. I mean, he even references it.
Yeah, well, he did say that. He said, "Have you seen The Hustler?" So
it's good enough for Paul Newman. It's good enough for you.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought those three for me. So the young lad whose dad was an arsehole, basically, the bloke who lived opposite the matchstick lad, and Ken Wall or Richie's father-in-law to be. I thought they were the standout roles for me.
Sure. How about you, Eke? Any particular person you would mention from the cast?
I think the standout was definitely Bob Dylan.
Agreed.
Okay, that's it. No, I don't know. I guess I kind of agree. The new guy, what was his name? I forgot. I've got the cast list here, and I can't think of it. There's so many names. Like to say that this is an ensemble cast is it's an understatement. Like there's so many people. But yeah, the new guy that always has a match in his mouth. Yeah, I liked that guy. I feel like he was kind of underutilized in a way. Like he was sort of a fun and interesting character for the first sequence of the movie, and then he almost disappears for the rest of the movie. Like he shows up briefly when they do the elbow boob game for a minute, and then he gets his arm broken. Then he's just gone until the end of the movie. Like he's there, he's in the scenes. The actor is physically present, but his character plays basically no part in anything outside of just those two bits. And I don't know, I kind of liked his character. I thought it was kind of neat. And yeah, actually, I have mixed feelings about the ending of the movie, but I suppose I'll get into that later. But yeah, I would say, just that one character. Though I did like Pee-wee. For some reason, the idea of a scrawny little girl hanging out with a bunch of baldies was somehow amusing to me for some reason. So, again, same thing. She was basically underutilized. Amusing, but beyond that, it's like, yeah, it's just amusing. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
How about you, William? Who would you pick out from the cast? If any.
For a standout role, or
Yeah.
well, the guy Richie, I thought he done great. The sort of main character, the guy Perry with the march. I thought, considering it was his debut movie, I thought he was great. The sort of big character that everybody would probably want to be. Although for me, when I think back, there was one guy that he kind of stood out for me. He wasn't a main character. His name's Buddy. I think Jim Young is his name. And I thought, for some reason, I thought he was really an interesting character. And I kind of remember when being a young lad and watching it, I remember thinking, oh, he's cool. I want to be Buddy when I'm older. And I did read as well that if you remember when they're after the elbow tit session, they're driving to the zombie heartland, they sing a song in the car.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the guy Buddy, he wrote that song as well. And I only found that out the other day, which I'm not going to sing it because we don't want to lose everyone.
Which one was Buddy again?
Is he the one who died?
No, that's Turkey.
Oh.
If you remember at the party, he's being sick in the trophy.
Oh yeah, this slick guy.
Yeah, that's the guy that I kind of wanted to grow up and be. And it's strange as well, thinking back when I was young, very young, and watching it. And they were, at the time, they were old to me. And now when I'm watching it, I'm thinking, wow, they're actually young. So strange, quite a strange feeling that. But
Well, I suppose the supplementary question to you, William, then is, and did you get to be that guy when you grew up?
definitely not, no. Although I definitely have been sick
But
at
did you
a
try?
few parties.
But did you try to be that guy?
I don't know, possibly. Possibly, yeah, who knows? It conditioned me. But he was my standout character. I was always drawn to him. I used to put it on at home, had it on video, and I'd get all my friends round and we'd watch it. Then we'd go out and pretend to be the Wanderers, pretty much. So good days, great.
So obviously, this is why you picked this film. It's lots of nostalgia for you personally, then.
I don't know if we got a little bit of a glitch on William's audio. I heard at the end there, so he may have
Maybe he's
may have had tinterweb problems.
yeah, could be.
I just noticed that Buddy is the only blonde in the movie.
Yeah. Can't say I
Well, he's got a
noticed.
bit of Irish in him, Irish Italian. You know what I mean? like in Goodfellas.
Exactly. William, if you're not aware, your audio's gone.
Yeah, do you know this?
Oh,
It was
you're
my
back.
Wi-Fi went down, so
Ah.
I've got signal issues. I need
I
I
see.
need to get the 5G Starlink.
How about just buying a wire connection? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be going back to the days of Jesus.
Oh, for goodness sake. That's
Hey,
what
come
I
on!
use.
Everybody knows that Jesus had a dial-up. Come on. So you didn't get a chance to finish your point before, but when you said you and your mates used to go out, did you do the whistling thing as well?
Oh yeah, we done that. We done that for a long time, right up through.
And it annoyed everybody.
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't that great at it, but my brother, Jesus, he could deafen you by doing it.
Yeah.
It was always handy if you was getting chased by the police, you would hear that and know.
Well, I was even better because I didn't even have to use fingers to do it because I could do it just sort of by the curling my tongue and doing it that way. So a proper full-on dog whistle, but
Oh, yeah.
without having to, you wouldn't want to leave your dukes, one duke. You need both of them, don't you? If you're going up against the wongs without the old Jap slapping, you know what I mean? Come near me with that shit, son, and I'll kick your ass.
I suppose we should really discuss the soundtrack. Eke, what's your thoughts on the soundtrack as a complete soundtrack, not individual songs that was used? Do you think it worked? Do you think it was intrusive? Do you think it was an addition? Was it a help or a hindrance?
I loved it.
You liked it?
I thought it was great. I think I would have handled some of the editing of the footage a little differently, but the thing is that they were doing everything by hand, and I have the luxury of doing editing digitally, so I can make some pretty tight cuts, and I can do multiple passes. They did not have that technology or that ability at the time, so the style of editing that I would have used, it's like the technology exists now that did not exist then, but other than that, like, I thought it was fantastic. I really liked the pacing of the visuals to the music a lot, and some of the camera work was really good, like very entertaining. Like the zombie sequence, freaking loved it. I thought it was just fantastic. I think the fights were a little weak, but whatever. It's like a low budget, like a micro budget movie from '79, so you can't expect too much. But other than that, it reminded me a little bit of like a John Carpenter movie, where there were big musical set pieces set to footage and intentional set pieces. And as William was talking about that song that was written by Buddy as they were getting lost, that reminded me of like old musicals from like the 40s and 50s. And I actually liked it. Typically, I do not like musical numbers. I think they're cheesy, but I liked that one. So, yeah.
Okay. Sansom, what's your thoughts about the music?
Well, it was very eclectic, but every single track that they picked fitted the moment. So you'd have like the Jersey Boys. So when they're walking down the street together as a gang, you know, having a, you know, pushing each other, having a bit of chub on right at the beginning, walk like a man, you know. So completely unfitting. In one scene, they were playing Lulu, Make You Want to Shout. So, you know, I think that was the song that they were playing when the football team, the opposing football team, come out. Obviously, you had Dylan in the scene at the end, so times are a changing. What film? I'm trying to think. There's a very famous film where that ends the film, and that might have been some kind of zombie apocalypse type film as well. But that was brilliant. And then obviously, in one of the sort of this sort of more mellow, sadder moments, Stand By Me, you know.
Yeah.
So even though those songs as a canon, if you like, within it, well, put it this way, it would be a great movie theme tune to own on CD, because virtually every single track on there is a hit, and it is a massive mixture. It would all supposed to be equivalent to a now 86 or whatever it was compilation type record, but in the context of the movie, every single track that was picked and every single section of the track that was picked just fitted in. I thought fitted in brilliant. You know, including, I didn't realize. I thought in the car, because when I was singing that song, I thought, oh yeah, that would probably be, you know, Del Shannon or somebody like. I didn't realize that was an original from one of the guys in the car. You know, but it was, you know, but there was other thing as well, because this was obviously set in '63, because they showed quite poignantly the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And yet a number of the tracks were sort of late 50s as well. I noticed that as well. There was a few tracks that were sort of from an earlier era, still popular, but from a slightly earlier era. So yeah, it was, you know, music-wise, yeah, absolutely hands down wins, because they were the tracks of the era. So but like I say, it's very easy to pick tracks of the era and just try and shoehorn them in. But they picked the ones that fit the sentiment of the particular scene, which isn't always as easy to do.
No. William, your thoughts on the music?
Yeah, I loved the music. It was great. Perfect. I thought every song the guy used, the boy that wrote it, Richard Price, he was the guy that wrote it. Andy wrote the book as well, and he actually plays a cameo role in it as one of the professional bowling players, which I only found out the other day, which I thought was pretty cool. But the music, a lot of the music in it was maybe even the first kind of time I had heard it, going way back. And ever since I've loved it. And since I mentioned about an album, well, my son's Alexa, I ask it to play music from the movie The Wanderers, and it plays Wanderers Jukebox Classics, and it's got every song in it. So I often listen to that when I'm in the kitchen, doing my thing, I guess. Cooking dinner usually. But I love it. The music's great. I'm a big fan of it. I think it was actually a big part of what drew me back to the movie, because I probably watched it about, I don't know, a scary amount of times, to be honest.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. So, no real criticisms on any of the film. Not really, I think, is the conclusion here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, overall, you can tell it's low budget.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot about it that is great, but you do get the feeling they could have spent a bit more, but I think they struggled a lot to get the cash and to get it going, and eventually they got it out, and it did make a lot of money from what they say. But
Is that
they
right?
don't. There's no figure on how much it cost in total, but I can't imagine it's a lot.
Difficult to say with these things. As far as I know, it's always been very expensive to shoot a film in New York because of the licenses that are charged. I think even back then it would have cost a lot just to get the cameras on the streets. But Eki might know a little bit more about that than I do. I'll say what I think about it now, because I don't really have much to say about it. To me, the inclusion of Dylan gave it that. Overall, this is the end of an era, and this man and this song is the representation of the era that's coming in, and all these guys and all these values are all going out. Any comment on that?
No, I actually agree.
Because who's coming? Sorry, I was just going to add there, Eki. Because who's coming in is Vietnam and body bags coming home by the dozen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that innocence that they're sort of trying to put over is never coming back. The gangs are going to be more violent. They're going to be more criminal in the future. This is an era-ending moment that they're trying to capture, and perhaps they did. Americans would know better than I think. But that's what I get from it. This is the end of an era movie. This is trying to capture this young lads trying to be gangsters, if you will, but not really. Pretend gangsters. But what's going to follow will be the real McCoy when it comes. Sorry, Eki, I interrupted.
No, not at all. That's, basically, I concur. One of my favorite elements of the movie was Richie and his infidelity. Like, my favorite scene of the movie was actually about an hour into the movie, the one where they're at the party and he gets together with what's the character's name? Nina. He gets together with Nina in the car, and then there's the big reveal of he's betrayed the girl, he's done wrong by his friend, and then even Nina ends up leaving him for reasons that aren't really explained. I mean, one can assume things, but whatever. But it's a great scene. It's a great reveal. I really liked it. But all the way at the end of the movie, he does decide to, maybe I'm inferring it. He's not very clear. This isn't described in any dialogue, but in terms of overall decision making, he decides to get together with Chubby's daughter to marry her so that he can be inducted into Chubby's gang, I suppose, or whatever.
Yeah.
So he ends up choosing the family, like his neighborhood, which would have been like an extended family because they're all Italians.
Yeah.
He ends up choosing his own people and responsibility, marriage, over everything else, including the girl, Nina more or less represents, I suppose, the movement of New America into, like, I don't know, the hippie movement or something like that. And he sees her at the tail end of the movie, and he decides that he wants to see her just one last time or whatever. And once she goes in to listen to all the Bob Dylan music, he's like, actually, no, I'm going back. I'm going to go back to the party. I'm going to go back to my fiance and what will become my family. And so
Yeah.
that seems to be, I will give the movie points for, that's a very interesting thing to start discussing, the movement from older America into new America, and of all the things, a decision to stay with the values that you grew up with and basically reject new values. I thought that was actually very interesting. I wish that they'd done more with it, but yeah.
Well, she
similar.
definitely makes that choice, doesn't she? She definitely rejects, simply by doing what you're talking about, the folk club place. By going in there, it's like the gateway into tomorrow America, represented by that song and Dylan. And because
Yes.
we know what's going to happen, of course, because we're looking back, it does have that quality about it now. I expect it might not have had when it first came out. Who knows? Whereas, as you rightly say, Eki, the lad's going back to his tradition. He's going to marry that girl. He's going to be taken into that. I assumed, some sort of local criminality represented by those.
No, they
Those.
only had ice cream shops back in those days. It was all straight ahead stuff. Very, very upper crust.
Okay then. Represented by the shirts again, this identity thing. But that's how I saw it. I saw it as the end of an era. This is what they're trying to tell us, I think. This is the end of an era. And she turns her back on the tradition by going into the folk club and becoming part of tomorrow's America.
I would actually disagree with on that one point. I don't think she turns back on tradition. I think, and I'm only going based off of what I actually saw in the movie. I don't know the book or anything like that.
No, nor do I.
It seemed to me as though she was simply walking into, we'll call it the future, just as a matter of course. It seems as though she was more representational than anything else. I don't think that she was fundamentally a character. I think she represented a kind of zeitgeist that was coming in and moving along, and one that was like happening in proximity to Richie and his gang. And as it was continuing, it was simply going along. But I don't think, my own opinion, I don't think that she was turning her back on tradition. I think that she was simply a part of a zeitgeist that was moving forward from tradition. And that I do agree that the people that are pushing this stuff, they themselves are the rejection of tradition. I mean, I would say that they themselves are turning their back on tradition, but I think that her character was more or less like a wind or a breeze. It's moving in a direction, and it's not turning its back on anything, because there is no back. It's simply the movement of the times. That's my own impression, but that's just me.
William, how do you feel about this scene and what I'm suggesting?
I'm unsure. I dropped out.
Oh, did you?
I missed most of what you said.
Right. Well, what I was
Aye,
saying
sorry.
is the film, for me, having never seen it before, seemed to me to be, this is the end of an era. What we're looking at is going to be.
Oh yeah, I caught that bit. Yeah,
Right.
interesting. That never actually crossed my mind.
And
To
all
be
those
honest.
young boys pretending to be hard cases and all the rest of it
Hmm.
are going to go to Vietnam and probably die, come home in
Yeah.
body bags. And because it's Dylan and that particular song, that represents the world that they're all about to enter. A new America, so to speak, and that America that we see through that gang situation will become in the future real gangs with real criminality and real violence. Whereas what we see, apart from that lad dying because he fell, is not quite. It's more like going for a fight after school type violence, is what I saw. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, to be fair, I would probably agree with that. It's not something I considered before in regards to the war and the coming days ahead, if you like. So that's quite a good point and good analysis. That, to be fair, John. I don't know how Eki it took him so long to get into it. From the very beginning, it had me hooked from the start. Of course, Richie and his girlfriend at the time, they're having a bit of fun, and she says to Richie, "Oh, do you know what true love? Do you know what the meaning of true love is?" And before she's even finished the sentence, he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I do."
I wonder why. I wonder why it was like that. I wonder.
And then and she's not wanting to go ahead with it until they get married because of her reputation. And she says to him, "Oh, I'll use my hand," and he says, "I could do it with my bloody hand." And that cracked me up, man. From the very start, it had me hooked.
Oh no! Just to be sure, like I did find it entertaining. I'm only saying that the first scene where there's like a real twist with a real emotional thrust based on everything that had been set up previous was the scene where there's the big reveal in the car. I just happened to like that scene in particular. I thought it was just fantastic. So it was sort of like a little high point. But anyway, I do agree. The beginning of the movie was I was hooked from the beginning.
That's because she was wearing suspenders. That's why. Stockings.
Yep.
Sensum, what do you think of what I'm putting forward here about that last section with Dylan?
Yeah, I completely and utterly agree, because even though it's set in 63, they're already feeding in the idea that they are ramping up, military recruitment for what would become it was already in progress, but just under the radar, what would become the Vietnam conflict.
Yeah.
And like I say, it was still that time. It was just before the contraceptive pill. So women were very protective about the VONA because they could become pregnant. And it was a very, very risk to take, because unless the man in question, Richie in this case, were strong-armed or otherwise into a marriage, then that person would be shunned. There is a moral right for shunning in society, I believe, and in my opinion anyway, because that's because the risk, obviously, to the woman is not only is she left with the burden, even though there were places that you could get abortions of the time. It wasn't a particular. It should never be a pleasant process now, even though you've got nutters dancing around lionizing it and got like.
Yeah.
I saw one young poor lady. I can only imagine, and she had like how in World War II or in the Korean War and that, where they would put little stickers on number of kills.
Yeah.
This woman had tattoo and like a little It was like one of those ones where like a prisoner's counting the day off, where it was like lines going down, and then when you got to 4, you put the 5th one through, so you knew that was 5. Well, she had 5, so she was getting the diagonal thing, and it was like, yeah, that's right, you know, my body, and I'm like, I don't know of any sane person who would treat that particular thing as very lightly. Yeah, I'm not anti, but I am. It should be, you know, it should literally be the last port of call, in my opinion. But anyway, that's by the by. So obviously, you know, within a couple of years, the contraceptive pill was out, and then you have, you know, the emergence of the swinging 60s and the Summer of Love, you know, 68, 69, going into there, where it literally was, yeah, just do what you want, because certain scientists with certain names, shall we say, have developed a pill that will destroy societal norms henceforth, basically. You know,
Sure.
that was what that, another one. And then obviously the final scene where he's sort of, you know, he's lumbered now, you know, although I wouldn't want to necessarily say that, because she was a pretty lady and it wasn't a bad family to get in with. Maybe it's a bit risque, shall we say, but you're not going to starve. And he sort of chases after the woman who he obviously must have, you know, had that heartstring love for, and sees her sort of sitting in the arms listening to Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And that was once again, you know, you're, you know, what catch you're still at school at 19, and she's, you know, even though she may only be a year or so difference between you and her, you know, she is actually a fully fledged woman who can go and sit with a bloke who looked like he was well-to-do or whatever. And then you've got the crossover from the, you know, the bebop style pop music of the time, going into the stuff like a Bob Dylan, you know, and sort of the more thoughtful 60s stuff, you know. So once again, it seemed to fall into that timeline where, you know, Kennedy assassination, so 63 going into 64, the advent of the contraceptive pill, the war in Vietnam, all of these things were referenced to without actually punching in the face to say, yeah, this means Vietnam War's coming soon. Yeah, this means this one's going. It's very subtle and it's very cleverly done.
Sure. The thing, am I correct here? Or did I just interpret the dialogue wrongly? But the scene inside the girl's house, and Dad is getting at the lad for causing the pregnancy. Does he not at the same time say that she's been doing this since ages ago, and he's just the first one that got her pregnant? So she's not actually a virgin, really.
I'm pretty sure that actually is in the dialogue. Yeah, I think I heard that too.
Because I got the impression from the dialogue, if I picked it up correctly, that the father's actually saying that she's been shagging around from about the age of 12, and you just happen to be the one that gets her pregnant. Which kind of shatters that whole reality. Because that was the reality. The reality was back in those times. And I should know, because that's where I come from, that age. Sex was not something that happened, really. And I don't know about America, but I'm going to assume America was much the same as here. Girls didn't sleep around or shag around the way they might do now. So there was a contradiction in there. And within terms of the film, it didn't make sense what he was saying about his own daughter. You know, accepting that. It seemed to be as though the father has accepted that his daughter was having sex quite casually.
I'd have to rewatch it again, but I got the impression was that it was more sort of a generalization where, you know, we've been doing this since the dawn of time. You know, I was Jack. The father said something along the lines. I was Jack the Lad myself.
Yeah,
Back
sure.
in the day.
Yeah.
This comes back here. So I still think that I think that she was
Or was she just
I still think she was untouched.
Well, I was just going to add, was she perhaps, as a few girls even around here where I live, perhaps a girl who allowed certain things to happen but not full sexual intercourse?
Well, she offered him a crafty reach around, but he wasn't interested. So,
and I'll tell you the other thing that was interesting was the strip poker.
Yeah, that was they had a good system. I wish I had that system when I was younger.
Well, I was going to then add, because it happens to be true, that around this area at that time, that actually became a thing within my generation who were getting married at 19 and 20. That was happening, believe it or not, because I was at one of those parties myself. There was two married couples, myself and a drummer out of another group, his wife, and well, it was my first wife. So that obviously was going on and probably went on in the States as well. Perhaps Eke can enlighten us on that. Do you know anything about that, Eke?
He's just popped out for a second. He said he'd be back in a couple of minutes. That was all. But
so he is. That leaves just you and I, because William's out as well.
No. I still, that was a curious scene, because I suppose that was one way of getting, some form of titillation back in the day when, like I say, it was still relatively taboo. It wasn't the norm,
Oh no.
So
No.
People did this, a few drinks, and it was as close as you would get to, an encounter of that nature without there being any real consequences other than potentially somebody getting a particular reputation or whatever. So I just
did you like that?
The thing is, if I did it now, they'd sort of pay me to put them back on. They'd say, put a jumper on.
But what made it comic, of course, is the winking of the signals and the passing of the cards and all this carry on.
I thought the best one was when she goes, I think I've got it here. I've got a high flush. And the other guy goes, yeah, that's not enough. How would you know?
Oh, yeah. But it was certainly a lot more time of innocence than it is nowadays at that age. And I suppose that's why I didn't get so much as you guys from the film, because I lived through that era. Obviously not in America, but so it doesn't really chime with me, that film, at all. Music, fine. Most of the tracks I knew, if not all of them, and some of them we actually played in the group. But no, I didn't get very much from it at all. And I thought that, as you pointed out, we spoke about already, about the the zombie-like thing it seemed totally out of place. So for me, the only real interest was that I would take from it is what I've already said. This is the end of an era. This is what the message is, if there is a message there. It's that. Nicely done by the appearance of Dylan in his song, if it really was him. But as for the rest, I saw too much violence myself at that age. Real violence on the street. And it looked nothing like American violence, I can tell you that. And the violence that was on the street when the Americans came here was even worse. And we used to always think that funny, to be honest with you. Anytime there was a street fight and an American was involved in it, they always took that sort of boxer stance, you know, put them up. Whereas street fighters here in this part of the world, you know, they don't go in for any of that nonsense. And they always get beat, the Americans, because they took this, you know, you don't kick and you don't do this and you don't do that. Like they do in that film, you know, it's very similar to what American lads did when they came here and found themselves in a street fight. But they always get beat because of it. Lads around here were a lot dirtier fighters than the Americans ever were. So no, I didn't get much from the film, to be honest. And it's probably due to my age and the fact that I was a young teenager myself at that point in time. It's very much, you know, me coming to the end of school life and going out to work for the first time and all of that. So, and I think again, I would say that's what's symbolised in the film when one of the lads has got a gun and he's saying, "We'll come with you," and then the other chap says, "No, not with that." Whereas again, in the future, that's not the way it's going to be over there. It's going to be the guns. It's going to get a lot more violent. So, any comments on any of that, Sensor?
No, I think you're 100% right there, because there was still that honour, because when the initial ruckus was set up, because it was going to be a fight initially, it was only when you know, Richie's sort of future father-in-law got involved and said, yeah, but we want to make it a bit interesting. But, you know, have your fight, but do it on the football pitch because we can have a bit of a wager. Yeah,
so we can make money with it.
But when it was initially spoken about in the school, you know, after the name-calling scene with the
Sure.
teacher, you know, the head of the black gang said, you know, yeah, we'll be there, just no guns and no knives. So there was still that, and if that was stated and that was said, then those were the rules. And basically, anybody who, you know, from those times, if such a scuffle was set up, and somebody either side broke that rule and brought a knife or different, they would get ostracized by their own gang.
Absolutely.
So the cost to them, if they broke that rule, was ostracization.
Yeah.
You know, and also, not only have you been ostracized from your own gang, you're now on your own to face the repercussions of the other gang who, you know, you drew the knife on, or even may have even stabbed, or worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
so
no, you're right.
You're left out in the cold. You've got no support network, and you've got a set of really angry people who are going to exact their vengeance on you. And that was pretty much the similar sort of storyline, if you remember, about where, you know, the guy in the beginning of the Warriors, he gets all of the gangs from New York together to hold this big, you know, we need to come together and stick it to the man because we, you know, we fight amongst ourselves, but we are not each other's enemies in reality. The man, as he called it, in other words, the system, the state,
Yeah.
he is our enemy. It's. I tell you what, you know, paraphrasing, it's no different to today now, is it? You know,
Yeah.
especially on
No,
cause an argument in an empty room as long as there's a mirror in there. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Absolutely horrendous. You know, the whole notion. But once again, you know, there was an interfering little lickspittle shit who couldn't take the gang, the community, the gangs be coming together in order to stick it to the man,
Man.
and he shoots them and blames it on the Warriors. So, and the fact that they'd done that because the rule was, you know, no firearms, no nothing. This is a peaceful meetup. Every
Sure.
single gang, you know, as soon as they thought, you know, because he obviously grassed them up. This is the one who did it. Goes, yeah, I saw the Warriors do it. The Warriors did it.
Yeah.
So he grassed them up. They then immediately became the focal point of every single gang in New York, and that was, you know, that was a very real thing. So, like I say, you know, you're quite right. There was still, even though, you know, it was still roughhousing and whatnot. I mean, in fairness, you still got a similar sort of thing here when it came to football hooligan crews. You know, they would sort of say, you know, yeah, we'll meet up with you, but we've heard you lot of sort of brass knuckles, knives, and all sorts. We don't do that shit. So if you want us to turn up, and it was like, yeah, no, we won't be doing any of that. So woe betide if any one of them did, because, like I say, there was still that repercussions. You know, when it was big news in the 80s and whatnot. You know, not that it did them any. You know, these big hard men, as they're called, you know, and I don't want to piss anybody off, but, you know, these so-called big hard men wasting their energy and time fighting on people in the same situation as them that just happen to support a different football team. You know, what a waste of fucking time. Anyway, sorry about that. But yeah,
No.
Yeah, but
I was just going to add, around here, the rules were, if you see this guy that you're maybe looking to have a fight with, if you see him on the street with a girlfriend, a girl on his arm, you don't go near him. You leave him alone. Because the last thing you want is to beat the crap out of this guy in front of his girlfriend, make him look bad. So you don't do that. Same as if you were in a pub and the guy came in with, even if it was with his mates and some girls with them, you don't start anything for the same reasons. Because you wouldn't want it if you were out with your girlfriend and somebody beat the crap out of you in front of your girl. So there were different things that you did and did not do. And likewise with the weapons. If it was fisticuffs, then it was fisticuffs. I mean, I know the night that I get smashed with a lemonade bottle, it was meant to be fisticuffs. And this bottle came out of nowhere and smashed me right here. Completely breaking that rule. So it did apply. But don't worry, I did get the guy back eventually. I was just a young lad, said some. I didn't know any better.
Yeah, I was never much for it. To be honest with you, I didn't get in many.
No,
I didn't get into any neither at school, and it wasn't because you know, I was a dweeb or had hard mates that used to stick up for me. With one exception, the regular school bully, who was an absolute arse, he really was. And he was only a sniveling little shit because his brother thought he was hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one day he said the wrong thing, or it said something or whatever, and I don't know what made me do it. Yeah, I honestly don't know what made me do it, but I must have got to a breaking point. And I've got a very low, you know, I've got a very you know, long fuse, sort of slow burning long fuse.
Yeah.
I'm not somebody who sort of flies, irrespective of what I might sound like on streams when I'm talking about the government and that, yeah, because they get no measure from me. But very low, and just been this continual shite. And his brother, the thing is, his brother, I think, was a year older than him, but they were the same size.
Mhm.
Yeah, they weren't, and one of them was sort of the. He thought he was a hard nut, but he wasn't really. Yeah, and so his brother inherited hard nut cachet.
Yeah,
was
of
the older
course.
one.
Of course.
And I don't know what was going on. I was walking back from school or something, and something kicked on. I don't know what it was, but it was something. It could probably just trivial. I just had enough, yeah. And I just turned round, yeah.
Yeah.
And the little one, because they were called brothers, and one was called Little X and Big X. They were the same size. They were both little shits, yeah. They just because one was younger than the other, they were called Little and Big. And I just turned round, right, and I looked the little one in the eye, and then I don't know why I did it. Right? Well, I do know why I did it because I didn't want to break my hand, but I slapped the older brother. So I was staring at the younger one, and the other one had a slimy, smirky face, and I literally took the side of his face off with my hand. I'll tell you what, my hand, right, was absolutely stinging for hours after. So his face must have been fucking peach. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like
And
this.
He was in that much shock.
I'll bet.
Fired, and I'm certain there was a tear in his eye because it must have bloody hurt. If it hurt my hand, it must have hurt him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that aside, the next you get all this. Oh, you're in for it. You're in for it. I never got I never got a peep out of them.
Yeah.
Until years later. The lad I was with school with, he had an elder brother, and his elder brother was head boy, head of every sports team, everything. And this little lickspittle shit had been, the elder, lickspittle shit, the elder, shall we say. You're going to twat that fat bastard when I see him, and all this. Apparently, he got the scruff of his neck lifted up and said, "Go anywhere near him, and I'll tap you." So that's the reason why I never got any bother. So I didn't know I had a guardian angel, but I did, and it was my mate's older brother who I didn't knock around with. Older brothers. We were sort of, sort of. If you're 2 or 3 years older, it's like, sod off. Nobody's interested. You're too young. But yeah, I never got into either any scraps or anything. But I mean, me and my dad was a good boxer. He was a boxer for the mines. He was really decent middleweight boxer. And to this day, I still love boxing. I think boxing, the noble art, as it's called, it's literally one man's test of strength against another's. And that was, that was the way it was. And I think you mentioned this as well. If you squared up to somebody and you bested them, in other words, you knocked them down, that was the end of it. There was not.
Yeah, usually that was it. Usually that was it.
Whereas now it's just like, it's not only, you've been bested and you've got 6 feral rats milling around. As soon as you go down, they're like hyenas. You might be the noble lion, but as soon as you go down, all the hyenas drop in on you like a pack animals because they haven't got any more sense. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, as much as I love boxing as a sport, I dislike MMA completely. Now, I know it's probably the most useful thing to learn from a self-defense perspective. Nobody's denying that. But I think it's probably the most dishonorable sport because literally, when you get somebody down on the floor, it's licensed to now twat them even harder in the head. And that something does not rest well with me. Like I say, I'm not as old as yourself, John, but I think I'm probably older than the other 2 guys. But that whole MMA thing just leaves me cold. I hate it with a passion.
One of the lads that used to knock about with me. This is it. It's difficult sometimes for me to fit all this in because I was so young when I started the group. But one of the lads that used to knock about with me before the group days, he was an amateur boxer and a damn good one. So if any fights ever broke out, either in a dance hall or outside a dance hall, Billy, he would just automatically take that pose of a boxer and jab, jab, and that was the end of it. I never saw Billy ever take a punch or go down. He was so good. Even, of course, he was so quick. And it would be unexpected on a street fight, you know, for somebody to actually take that stance and actually be able to do it. It's quite amazing. But again, as the years went on, and obviously I was no longer involved in anything like that, but seeing it from the stage, sometimes I could see myself how all that rules and honor and all that stuff had really disappeared. And now it was one guy's hitting another guy, and before you know it, their friends are getting involved in it. And as you say, somebody goes down, then they're going to get a kicking. And that, as you said as well, it can be highly dangerous. You can actually, as you well know, kill somebody with not a lot of difficulty. But we used to always think that it was quaint when we saw Americans who came here trying to fight that way in the streets of Greenock, when they were going to get absolutely plastered by the locals. Absolutely. And they always did. No matter how big and burly some of these young Americans were, they always got hammered. It's quite amazing because they took that, what you see in films, you know, this, just like we were watching in that film, essentially, tonight. You know, very clean fighting rules and all that. But times changed since them, and everything became too real, too deadly, too quickly. Anyway, have we got William and Eki back with us? William, are you with us?
Indeed, present.
Good. Did you hear any of what I was saying?
Yeah, I caught quite a bit of that in regards to boxing and
Street
fighting. And
Yeah.
it reminded me of a story my dad used to tell me, and there's a moral to it. And basically, he was with a guy who got approached by another guy who was going to hit this person, and he was giving it, oh, I'm a 9-dan black belt, this, that, the next thing. And before the guy had even finished what he was saying, my dad's friend had thrown a fish supper in his face and smashed him over the head with a bottle of Iron Brew.
Yeah.
And my dad always used to say, look, if you're ever in a situation, don't tell anyone that you're going to hit them. Just fucking hit them.
Hit them. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the moral to that story.
Yeah.
But I always remember it, and it reminded me of it there with what you were saying. You could be the greatest boxer in the world. When it comes to street fighting, that's a different story.
Yeah, absolutely. There used to be might be there now, but there was a fella in the town that was a few years older than me, not many, maybe 3, 4 perhaps. And he was renowned for what he would do is he would walk up to the person that he was going to have an argument with. And he always made sure, I'm taking my cigarette out of the holder to demonstrate, he would always be like this, you know, right guys, you know, and all this stuff. And while you're busy doing all that, watching it and listening to him, you take a cigarette out and stick a cigarette in your eye. He was notorious for that. So he was not somebody that you wanted to tangle with. And there was another chap in the town. He was really mad. His name was Woods. and he carried around a hatchet, which he freely used on people he was fighting with. Freely used it. Not that I had anything to do with him, but he had this huge reputation. There's quite a few like that in this town. But there you go. Have we got Eki back?
That's a negative.
I was just reminiscing about my youth, because that film is when I was that age, 15. I left school 1961, so it's very
The good
much
old days back when you could get clocked in the head with a lemonade bottle and it wasn't that big of a deal.
I never went down. I was still on my feet. I couldn't see a damn thing. I was covered in blood, of course. But I never went down.
Love it.
I say that heroically, as if it was important.
Well, but when you're like 15 or whatever, that's a big deal. I get it.
Yeah. And of course, it was a quick walk to the hospital to get sewn up. That was in the days when you walked into the emergency room, which generally consisted of two nurses, and you politely chapped the door and the nurse would open. And of course, you'd be standing there, as I must have been, covered in blood.
Right, but how would you have taken the selfie and uploaded it onto TikTok? I don't understand that part.
Oh, of course, following dates, the eyes are way out here somewhere, But I was very lucky. I could have been blinded. A fraction either way, and the eye would have been gone. So, street fights are dangerous, folks. And we're getting more dangerous even back then, as you can tell. I did get my revenge on that guy, of course. I clobbered him one night with an empty milk carton. Milk cartons used to hold 2.5 dozen glass bottles made from steel with lots of sharp edges on it. So I pounded him in the head with that a few times. And that was my revenge. I retired after that.
Jesus.
Jesus.
Not getting on the wrong side of John.
Well, that's the kind of person I used to be when I was that age. I wasn't, a bit like Sensum in a sense. I wasn't easily roused into an argument or a fight. But I will not forget if I feel as though I've come off worse. I will not forget.
So what I'm sensing from this is slow to anger, but once that point is reached, you will get beaten within an inch of your life with a milk carton. Okay.
I know it sounds crazy when I say it. I mean, it's crazy to me even, and I was the one that did it. That you can imagine what a milk carton was like in those days. Sensor may have a better idea than William. I don't know if you've ever seen these things, William. But they were plentiful then. And where this happened wasn't far from the actual local dairy where bottling went on. So they were easy to get, these things.
A glass bottle.
Yeah, glass bottles of milk. They used to use them, these crates, for storage, for delivery and collection. And they were lying outside this place. So I just lifted it and I waited on him coming down the street. And once he had slightly passed me, I just hit him over the skull with the thing. And of course he went down, then I hit him a few more times with it.
What, the big crate?
Yeah.
Oh, me. Oh, man. Classic.
Well, I get hit with a ball, he's getting hit with a crate. You see, I've escalated it now.
I like it.
like, you know, and I told you before the story about the lad that was bullying me in school, and he followed me home one day, and when I opened the door, I put my air pistol right in his forehead, right there. Boom. Hard up against it. Can't remember exactly what I said to him, but something to effect, leave me alone, don't bother me. And then I pulled the trigger, and he went flying across the landing and smashed his skull on the ground. And I closed the door, of course. I think he stayed off school for about 2 weeks.
Oh, the
Sorry, you know.
70s.
This is I'm talking about the 50s.
Oh, nice. Better still.
Yeah, I left school at 61, so this would be 60, end of 59, perhaps. Yeah. I mean,
And remember, that's 1859.
well, of course. Single
John's
shot
talking,
guns.
John's talking more Brando.
Exactly. I'm not saying these things to try and impress anyone. I'm not impressed by any of it myself. I'm just showing you that there's a certain reality there on this side of the Atlantic, and I'm sure you could all tell stories yourself about things that happened. I'm not proud of any of it, but sometimes these things come to you whether you want them or not. But in my experience, on and off the fighting scene, was women caused most of it, if not all of it. They were the cause of these street fights or in dance halls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a term that my nanny used to use. She goes, used to say, they made the bullets for other people to shoot. That was the term that she used to use. Oh,
Yeah.
she's no good. She used to make bullets for other people to shoot.
Yeah.
In other words,
Because-
just to cause mither.
Yeah, because a lot of the times you guys would be dancing with the girls, and the girls would say things like, "He's looking at me, and I don't like the way he's looking at me." You know, things like that. And of course, if you're half drunk, not that you should be at that age, but if you are, and most guys were, it doesn't take much for the fella then to, who are you talking about? Oh, I'm over there. And before you know it, you've got a fight. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with the film.
That's pretty much the same with me growing up as well. So I don't think anything changes there. It's
No.
always them.
You know, exactly, because at that age, why are you dancing? Well, you're there to try and get hold of a girl. Why are you trying to get hold of a girl? Because you're trying to have sex with her. End of story. Let's be honest, guys. That's it. At that age. But you're half drunk because most of the time you need the courage from the alcohol to go and ask them up to dance. And some women were like that, to be honest and serious about it. Some women would jack the guys up.
There
See
could
how
be
far.
something. There could be something to it where it's done in a way where they go away with the victor, and then create better genes. So maybe there's a bit more to it.
Well, I never even thought of that, William. Good for you for bringing some sense into it. I put it all down to cheap wine, because that's what we used to drink in those days.
Well, that as well, yeah, definitely.
Let's get back to the film, right? We're not here to discuss my my adventures at that age. I just like to tell people that it can be dangerous. I could have killed that lad. He could have blinded me. So there's a lot of danger in street fighting. You're better to be a fast runner, I think. So if a fight starts, you can get off your mark and get out of it. That's my advice. Some of the folk on the chat are saying buck fast. Resisting the lies. DJ is saying buck fast makes you suffering. Succotash. Glory days stories are cool, says Rooster Govan. He who the honey monster, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. Oh, I saw some terrible fights, especially when the Americans arrived. That was awful. I was glad I had nothing to do with it. I was well on a stage by that time, well away from it all. But they normally came off second, the Americans. Have you got any experiences like that, Eki, and lurking in your past?
You wouldn't believe the scars I've got on my knuckles. No, I don't. No, I'm lucky enough that I've led a fairly calm and comfortable life. Yeah, like I avoid street fights. I don't want to deal with them. Because out here where I live, yeah, sometimes it gets really out of control. And just as I think it was Sensum, or maybe it was you. No, it was Sensum talking about how there used to be a code of conduct where it was mono a mono, and now it's a free for all. And if you get into a fight with a person, if their friends are there, you are now in a fight with all of their friends, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah,
I have no interest in that.
you know the
Absolutely
answer
not.
to that, don't you? You know the counter move to that.
What's that?
You know what the counter move to that is. And that was worked out back in my day, the counter move. If you find yourself and it's you and some other guy and he's got 3 mates or 4 mates, you know how to get out of that, don't you?
Well, my solution would be to not get into a fight at all, but what's your solution?
Well, if there is no out, what you do is you make it very clear by the use of your language. Whoever's doing the talking, you mate, you are the one that I'm going to hold on to, and you're going to get everything that I can give you, regardless of what your pals do here. So you'll take all of it. And that can quite often work. That can often get the others, or get him to get the others out of it.
That works in a specific society with a specific demographic. Unfortunately, I do not enjoy that society or that demographic.
What would that be? Can you say?
In deference to your channel on YouTube, I'm just going to say that the demography of Scotland circa 1959 is utterly unlike Los Angeles, California, circa 1992.
Well, that same demographic didn't do very well over here either.
True, but they're...
And there was lots of them.
Yeah, I'm outnumbered. So,
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
yeah, it's one of these deals where I, without trying to sound like a weasel or anything, I'm just trying to keep the peace because I just don't want to deal with it. I'm just like a guy. As cool as these movies are, The Wanderers, The Warriors, and so on, with gangs and cliques that have special vests and sweaters that they wear and coordinated sneakers or something
Sure.
and theme songs. That sounds great, but that's not the average experience out here in Los Angeles at all. And indeed, the only people that do wear things like coordinated colors, those have a tendency to be people who are not of my demographic.
Right.
And those guys, they will fight in packs. They will absolutely fight in packs. People that are of my demographic have a tendency not to have any kind of a pack mentality in general. So,
In my own defense, guys and folks in the chat, I have to add the truth to this. That when I was 15, my mother remarried. And so I suddenly found myself with two brothers, the younger of which came with a notorious reputation as being a local hard man. And that was a reputation that he gained when he was in school. So anytime you went out with him, the likelihood was it would end in a fight somewhere, simply because he had this reputation. That was partly due to the fact that even back then, he was much taller. He had, as I always would tell folk, he was built like an athlete. He was built like a boxer, really, just naturally. Huge chest and arms and tall. And that attracted people to him for fighting, just the way men were or are. And so I got involved with him socially, and that's where all that started to happen. It never came to me naturally. That's how I get involved in it all. Like, let's get back to the film, guys, eh? This sounds more like Confessions of John Davidson. There is much I could talk
I was
about.
dragged into it. I promise it was my brother.
Yeah, Sam, I'm only Frank James. It's Jesse. He's the baddie. It just happens to be true. Never mind. I put it down to experience. It's all part of my life. Anyway, how are we going to finish this up? There's not much that William can add. He already said it all at the beginning. I like the film. How would you like to finish up this discussion on this film, The Wanderers, William? How would you wrap it all up for the audience?
Quite simple. Watch it. It's a great film. I loved it. Do you know, I was thinking there, I was trying to think of my favourite scene. I reckon it must be in the classroom where the teacher, he's asking for some names, like in name calling between white people and black people. And they're coming up with all these different names for each other. And what starts out as basically a teaching lesson erupts into a fight in the class, and then, I'll meet you after school, and then pretty much an all-out race war. And then, of course, the sort of mafia dudes, the father of the girl, that Richie's girlfriend, he turns it into the football game, and even that ends in violence because the Ducky Boys, they appear. And it's a great film. I think it's got pretty much everything. The music's great, the script's good, the acting's good, the music's fantastic. I mean, I can only give it a 10 out of 10. I highly recommend it. Most people I talk to, they've seen it, and they say, yeah, great film, and leave the kid alone. And they'll say stuff from the film. So
Sure.
It is well known, but some people maybe haven't.
I'd never heard
Yeah,
of
that's interesting.
I don't think it ever made its way here in this town. Maybe it did. I wouldn't know. I was too busy doing
Mhm.
other things at that time. How would
But
you?
yes,
Okay, on you go.
yeah, I certainly recommend it. On you go.
I was just going to invite Eke to wind up on the movie itself. How would you wind the movie up to our audience here?
I would say it's a good movie. It's a very solid mood piece. I don't know what to call it exactly, but it's describing a zeitgeist coming to an end, and I do think that it's interesting. I've come around to liking movies like that a lot more as I've gotten older. Movies that are attempting to sort of capture the spirit of the times. And again, because I have my own sensibilities, yeah, the plot isn't what I would like it to be. I think that there could have been a little more in the way of rewrites and structuring and so on. Normal complaints. I'm sure everyone knows my normal complaints by now. But other than those, I thought it was really good. It had a really interesting tone. One of the movie nights from months and months and months ago, I had said that I wanted to recommend Repo Man 1984,
Yeah.
and that was that's a heck of a movie to watch, to be honest. And The Wanderers reminded me very much of a proto Repo Man in a way. So the tone of the movie was very familiar to me. Like, I got it. I knew what they were going for. I completely understood it. So it's this weird. The Wanderers reminds me of a bunch of, in my estimation, cool movies and cool ideas that were being thrown around at the time. And I honestly think that the themes and the ideas had a lot of potential that were not fully explored. That's my only criticism. But outside of that, no, it's a fun movie to watch. I liked it.
Perhaps it's your own sense of a lost America that's beginning to seep into you, sense that you feel that way about it.
Well, that's actually kind of a weird thing, is that I can't identify with the Wanderers because they're Italians. I can't identify with the Black Gang for obvious reasons, or the Wongs for obvious reasons. The Baldies only marginally, tertiarily, but even then, kind of not really. And then
So you're in with the zombies then?
I guess. I don't know. The thing is, the New York experience is totally alien to me.
Yeah.
New
You've said
York
that many
Italians are-
times.
Yeah, so like when you talk about a lost America, one of the reasons that I find it easier to watch Repo Man is partly geographical.
Mm.
I understand the Los Angeles mindset because I was born here and I've lived here my whole life. So even though Repo Man happened to be directed by a British guy, the overall sensibilities, on a net level, they happen to resemble, my general experiences here. Like, I kind of get it. And of course, several of the actors happen to be of my own demography.
Mm.
So there's that. But the thing is, you're kind of right, though. When you mention the idea of an America that no longer exists, there is an element of that. 100% there is an element of that, even though I can't identify with any of the groups in particular because
No,
they're
I'm
just
sure.
not mine.
Sure. But I was
So-
meaning the mise en scène, the actual mood.
Yeah,
That sort of innocence that was almost in the air, so to speak.
yes. And that I completely agree that is now gone. It does not exist in Los Angeles anyway at all.
I would suspect nothing to go on. I would suspect that when it did exist in New York, it would also exist in LA.
I'm
But
sorry, I
I-
missed that last part. Could you repeat that?
Sure, I'm just saying that national innocence that existed once would also exist in LA as it did in New York at that time. It would be expressed differently, of course,
Yes.
but it would be there. Yeah, I thought just to add to that, to show you what I mean. Did you not find it interesting that at the end, when they're doing the football game, that the white girls are all wearing skirts down almost to their ankles, and yet the black girls are all wearing much more what you would expect cheerleaders to be wearing. I thought that was interesting.
I have this. I did not look into the movie production proper, but I do have the sneaking suspicion that there is something to be thought of with regards to the production. So, for example, um, the director and screenplay writer was Mr. Philip Kaufman and Rose Kaufman, produced by Martin Ransohoff. So there are elements of thought patterns that would be not native to myself that seem to be injected by some of the producers. I could go into detail about that, but I'm not sure that, Yeah.
Our masters might not like that. Sensum, how would you wrap this up to the audience?
I would definitely say watch it, because it is at the time it was very fresh for the time. I would imagine it was a very, very fresh sort of look upon that sort of lifestyle, the gangy, although not going the full hog gangy lifestyle in America. And I know that Eki mentioned American Diner, which was that a Lucas or early Lucas film, or Spielberg, one of the two sort of subsequent modern greats, as it were. But yeah, for me, the thing is, because like I say, because it's had a hiatus of, hold on, let me make myself really old now. A hiatus of nearly 40 years.
I feel. I think I do.
So I say, I think I'm definitely sure I saw it in 1984, because that's when my mate got his VHS player. Like I say, we watched that in the Warriors. And I was just speaking to Streaky the following week. I'm certain we watched Beverly Hills Cop and Conan the Barbarian. Because obviously, 18, 18, you might be like sort of, not even in teen years, but 18 meant now you just, get it watched. Go on, you'll be all right. And like you sat there and watched it, you go, oh, he's shagging that witch. That's great. Yeah. And you start like, oh. Yeah. There was none of these, they talk about it now like this, have protection control on your computer for your children. It's like when we were there, it's like, sort of, what is it like? Well, it's an action film about this barbarian sword fighting. All right, then you can watch that.
Sure.
And then they watch like 5 minutes of it. And like, yeah, this is shit. I'm going in the shed. And then we watch the rest, and like within 5 minutes, he's like, there's got all these naked women jumping around. It's like, yeah, come on. And this is even before we had any interest in girls, because girls were dirty, dirty girls. A year later, it was like, yeah, they're great. Girls are great.
The dirtier, the better.
No. I always liked the girls who were. I like bookish girls, to be honest. I don't know why. I was. I think that's been a theme in my life. I've never ever been jealous of. I've always been happy for people who've been able to afford, expensive things and nice things, etc. But I've never ever been jealous of them. But I've always been jealous of other people's sort of resounding intellect. And it's not jealousy as in I hate you. It's jealousy as like I'm in awe of you. You know, I wish I had that same mental intellect to even consider such things. But anyway, back to the film. If it was 1984 Sensum, this is getting a 9. Alas, as it's the old curmudgeonly Sensum, getting a 7. Sorry, William. It's getting a 7 from me.
7 from you. Eki, what would you give it out of 10?
I would say 6.5.
Okay.
Only because again, I'm a hard line on structure, so it's just but I still liked again a lot of the themes and tones. I loved the use of music, but without a solid plot, I have to back it down to like 6.5.
Okay. William.
Shocking.
Oof! Oh no! Now I feel like I've slighted William.
Out of 10, William.
Well, it's a 10 from me. It's got to be, right? I picked it.
Okay.
I'm going to
Okay.
go with a 10.
Going with a 10. That's fine. I think that's the first 10 we've had. Don't remember any of the movies we've done have been.
Is it?
Yeah. I
Maybe
think
it
so.
is.
Yeah. I think so. As far as my memory tells me, I don't think we've had a 10.
I've never picked a 10 yet because we haven't done
No,
any Steven
likewise.
Spielberg films. Eki's favourite director, Steven Spielberg. So, yeah.
There you
I
are.
have no idea how much I love Steven Spielberg. You settle down right now, buddy.
Yeah, he's my favourite. So we've got the big question of the night now. You know, coming up, closing up. Ooh.
Yeah.
The next person in the camera to pick a film is your good self, John,
Oh, gosh.
and you have a whole 3 categories to pick from:
Which are?
fantasy, horror, and western. So there you go. Don't need to tell us now, but I will. So fantasy, horror, western.
Can you post me that?
Yes,
Sure.
I definitely will. Yeah.
That'd be great. That'll be good. Just to remind me. Well, that's not a bad choice. That's not a bad choice. Fantasy.
And
You
next
said-
in the camera, after you, John, is Eki. So
Yeah.
there you go, Eki. You can start thinking now. So
And
you might have fantasy, horror, or western, but you won't know which until the next time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start thinking right now about next month. Okay.
Good.
Oh, here's another question, lads. Just as a sort of round up discussion here. Do you think this idea of the way we were doing it this year, sticking with the genres, has worked out reasonably well, or do you think we could improve in that? Just very briefly, what do you think? You think it's been okay?
Yeah,
Yep.
well, I think it's been good because we've forced ourselves into having to choose from like a variety of subjects. So it may be the case that we may choose different eras of film. So we might pick older films, we might pick newer films, but sometimes there may be a little bit of overlap between those films because we're drawn to those because those might be the particular films that we have an affinity for. Whereas if you've got a choice and that choice diminishes over time, it makes you think a little bit more about your choice. I don't know if that makes sense or if that sort of
No, I
ratifies what
I think this-
Eckian William thinks.
I think this idea of using the genres is good, and of course, when we've used up these genres, we'll just start again.
Yeah, well, I've got the old spreadsheet there with the next set of slots, the empty slots. So, it's a repeating section.
Yeah.
So as soon as
seems
we've finished,
well,
yeah,
seems-
well, I think it has. I mean, the other two guys can, differ. Their opinion may differ.
you quite happy, Eki, doing it
Yeah,
this way?
I'm happy.
You're happy, William, with it, right? That's good. Don't want you to upset William.
As long
There's
as we don't
also-
have to. Sorry, as long as we don't have to start making up genres.
Transgender genres.
Oh Jesus, no.
Well, to be fair, one of my favorite movies of all time is a romantic comedy zombie movie. So, yeah, it's Shaun of the Dead, 2004. It's a silly movie, but I like it.
So you want me not to choose a fantasy film, so you can
I'm
choose
sorry, I
that.
couldn't quite catch that. Was it?
So you want me to leave the fantasy genre free for you, so you can.
Yeah, obviously. Yes, completely.
Well, I'll think about it.
Okay.
I'll think about it. There's so many great films that we haven't even touched on.
I have to say, the first film that I reviewed with yourself, John, and you picked it, it was a film called Warlock, and it was a Western from the I think it was late 50s or early 60s, with Richard Widmark and Anthony Quinn and Henry Fonda.
Yeah,
But
brilliant
originally
film.
when you said Warlock, I was thinking it was the 80s film with Julian Sands about, Richard E. Grant, about witches and
Yeah,
warlocks and stuff like that.
yeah.
And then when I realised which one it was, I was like, I literally was like, oh, for fuck's. It was like, because it wasn't one that recollected to me. And I was pretty convinced that if there was a Western out there that was worth watching, I've seen it. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I hadn't seen this film, but I thought, well, I'll watch it anyway. And you give us the link, and I think it was free on YouTube.
Yeah.
One of the best films I've ever seen. Even to this day, I think that's one of the best films I've ever seen. And it was completely unknown to me. So that
Well,
was
I'm
great.
going to watch that
great.
tonight. Thank you for the recommendation.
Oh
No,
yeah.
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 Richard Widmark, Warlock. What a great film, mate. Really good film.
And they're all at their best. It's not as though any of them were starting out in their careers.
No, you've got Henry Fonda, you've got Richard Widmark, and you've got Anthony Quinn. What a brilliant film. Excellent film.
And it's
I think I might have given that a 9, and I think I might have even given that a 9.
yeah. Well, I know you rated it high because, as you said at the time, like you've said tonight, it became, so unexpected. It was unexpected to me. I came across it on YouTube. I'd never heard of it. I certainly never saw it in the cinema. And I thought it was really, really good. I thought there was a lot of depth to that film.
Brilliant film. Really good
A
film.
lot of depth.
On many different levels. And
Absolutely.
many little plots within the levels as well. Fantastic film. Really good film.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I might go and do a Western now. Not that one, of course. There's plenty of good Westerns. Anyway, I think it's time we kind of wound up here, folks. Unless you want to say something else about movies in general. Oh, here's a modern question. I don't think too hard about this. What's the last good film you've seen, apart from anything that you've reviewed here? Either in the cinema or streaming or whatever.
The last movie, what there?
The last good movie you've seen. Full stop.
Oh no. Good movie.
Yeah, a good movie. Just
Uh,
off the top of your head. What would it be?
I would say Edge of Tomorrow, 2013, starring superstars Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt, and Bill Paxton.
Yeah, that was one you recommended. That was a good film. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a silly movie. I understand it. And it does have one or two structural issues that I think are lamentable. But outside of that, like, I mean, good heavens.
It's a good popcorn film, put it that way. I always like time travel stories.
Yeah, they're silly, but I do like them.
Yeah. What about you, William? What's the last good film you've seen?
Oh, I did watch one last week, but it wasn't that great. I can't remember the name, but the week before that, John Wick, the first one. Me and my wife watched it, and I thought it was great. I loved it.
Okay. What about yourself, Sensor?
Well, they've started filming John Wick 4. It's titled John Wick 4 Gets on Me Wick. But I watched a couple. Well, it's a 2-part film series that somebody just mentioned offhand. Unfortunately, it is in a foreign language and therefore subtitled, but it was absolutely brilliant, captivating. I think the first film is just shy of 3 hours, like the part 1, and the second part is just shy of 2 hours, but it didn't feel like it. And I watched both films in 2 evenings, one after the other. Is a film by John Woo, a very famous director called Red Cliff. So you've got Red Cliff and Red Cliff 2. Absolutely fantastic. Best film I've seen. And they're not modern films. They're not recent. I think they're, early 2000s films before John Woo got in his pomp with shit like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Brilliant films. It's actually based on a historical event in China. 200 AD, there was this massive battle at a place called the Red Cliff in China. Now, obviously, you've got the old Jap slapping in there a little bit, and a little bit stuff's far-fetched, but the film itself is absolutely captivating. Really, I wouldn't pick it as a film for here because it's just too long, in my opinion. It's taking the piss. But if you're watching it on your own, or if you've got a little bit of time, Red Cliff 1 and 2, brilliant. Really, really decent films.
Yeah. I would love to put up Metropolis for review, but again, it's to do with the length. And I can
I'd do Metropolis. It's a brilliant film.
I know.
But like I say, I wouldn't pick that one because it's like a 2-parter. And so if you were picking it, and especially now we've got the categories, you'd either have to pick it as a block of 2, or you'd have to do it as a 2-parter, and then by the time your turn came round again,
everyone had forgotten. Yeah. That's the reason I don't, because of the length of it. I'd love to get William's thoughts on that. Because it's an old film from 1923. And it's no sound, William. It's shot in orthochromatic film, which is even further back, my friend.
Why did you watch that? Was it a punishment?
I'll tell you what, mate.
Why did I watch it?
William, I tell you what, mate. It is a brilliant film. I know it sounds terrible, but you think that was made in the 1920s. And there is a version, it's called, some Spanish version on YouTube, which is around about 3 hours and a bit. Yeah?
Yeah. You
watch that, and it is subtitled, obviously, and it has got some Foley music now because, obviously, it's been adjusted for modern times. Yeah. You watch that film from I can't remember exactly if it was 29 or 27, John, or even earlier.
No, I think it's 23, Sensor. I think it's 23.
And how prophetic that film is based on what we know now today.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. You can take whole sequence out of that and say, oh gosh.
Interesting.
No, it is. I'll tell you what, William, just try it. for size. I'm sure you'll find some kind of version of it on YouTube. You don't have any money to pay for. But originally it was over 4 hours long when it was made. Unfortunately, it went to America, and that's where the butchering started. And there's still, my son is a bit of an expert on this film. He's got every version that's available to buy. And he tells me there's still about 40 odd minutes that they don't think they'll ever find. But it's still a very watchable thing. And again, they're able to correct the jerkiness so it runs smoothly. So if you come across it, give it 10-15 minute watch and you might be surprised.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, I would love to offer it up for review, but the length just prohibits it. So and it can fall into fantasy, it can fall into sci-fi. In many ways, it could fall into horror. It's a bit. Well, there's another one that I've got in my collection. Again, I wouldn't offer it up. Fritz Lang's other classics says Ludwig Has to Be M with Peter Lorre in the film that made Peter
brilliant
Lorre.
film.
Yeah.
Brilliant film. Really good film. I watched that probably for the third time only about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Still holds up today. Brilliant film.
Yeah. And Peter Lorre's really superb in it, but it was unfortunate that he never quite got the same status when he went to Hollywood. It's just unfortunate, but never mind. So, as we're coming up for the half hour, guys, I think we should draw this to a close. If you let me bring on the music. And I'll let you go. I'll make you go last, Sensum, because you're the one that's usually got all the announcements and timetables and all that. So, Eke, have you got any final words for the audience?
I would say pick up precious metals, physical, and remember to floss. And that's it.
Good. Thank you. William, would you like to give us your advert and a few final words, please?
To be honest, yeah, pretty much like I always say, get out there, enjoy yourself, keep your head high, and remember, do not comply. And I'm going to have to shoot off because I need to catch the shop tonight. So I'll love yous and leave yous, and thank you again for having me, John.
No problem.
And I'll catch up with yous again, lads. So take care.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers, mate.
Okay. Sensum, that leaves you to do your advertising.
I tell you what, I hope everybody's got a pen and paper ready.
Why is that? You get that many? Yeah. If you get that many shows.
Well, first of all, it's handy that you two are on because I'm going to post something to you, yourself and Eki. But tomorrow night at the earlier time at 7 o'clock on Bonnie Lads channel, we're doing a little news roundup, me and Bonnie Lads. So that'll be at 7 o'clock on Bonnie Lads channel. Then on 42's channel at probably 9:30 tomorrow, because obviously Bonnie Lads streaming a little bit earlier. It will be the Englishman, Irishman, and Scotsman walked into a bar stream with myself, 42, and Resisting the Lies. On Sunday, I'm doing a stream on my channel, which is the first one since I've had millions of bans, so I'll probably get blasted. Which I'm calling Sunday Thangs. Yeah, but if you see the thumbnail, it's a parody on Stranger Things. So hopefully not too political, I should say, more jovial. And then because Toffee was supposed to be streaming on Monday evening at 9 o'clock, which is the bank holiday.
Yeah.
But obviously Toffee's now, he's closed his YouTube channel down, and his Telegram and everything. I don't think that's going to happen now. So I had a quick word with the Woodlander, who was meant to be a guest on Toffee's stream, and I said to the Woodlander, would you be up for doing the Wood for the Trees stream, which is the one that we had scheduled before I got ensconced doing a bit of a foreigner, shall we say, with me mate. So if you guys are up, I mean, I'm not putting you down to anything because I'll probably be able to get other people, but as you were the original lineup, can you guys make 9 p.m. UK time? So that would be 1 p.m. Eki, I'm reckoning, LA time on Monday evening, just for a couple of hours to try and do the Wood for the Trees stream.
Monday? At what time again?
It would be 1 p.m. your time, unfortunately. Here it's not a problem because
I can do that.
It's a bank holiday.
No, I'll do it.
Right. Well, what I shall do is now we've got the 3 lineup. So, guys in the chat now, we're going to do an extra bit of John on Monday. So, Monday night on my channel, I haven't set the stream up yet because I wanted to confirm everything. We're going to be doing the Wood for the Trees stream. I will set it up after this stream, I should say, and send Eki and John all of the details. If you guys, any of you guys in the chat watched the last one, it's just basically a set of questions that I pose to the panel and then they answer them. So it's not all about nationalism and political shit. It's just a series of, suppositions and questions that I give to the panel ahead of time so they can consider their responses. We then go through them on the night. And the last one, it was my most successful stream. And I think that was because a lot of people enjoyed it. So I think I got 800 and something views, which, it's a drop in the ocean, but it was still quite large for me. So,
that's huge.
So guys, I will set that up. So, like I say, as a swift recap, Bonnie Lad 7 p.m. tomorrow night, 42 9:30 p.m. tomorrow night. My channel on Sunday at 9 p.m. Oh, and Rags will be streaming at 7 o'clock on his channel, on Sunday. My channel at 9, and then on my channel again at 9 on Monday, hopefully Wood for the Trees stream with myself, John, Eki, and the Woodlander. Thanks very much, John.
Oh, excellent. No problem. So I'll just put you in the back room, both of you, and I'll close up the stream here, folks. So there you have it, folks. Another film review. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I know I did, always do. And as you heard Sensum say, I shall be on Monday night, and then I'll be back on my own channel on Tuesday night, and you've got all these other streams in between. And if you do get any good weather, then you should be out and about between streams or just watch the recordings. And that's all I've got to say for the moment, except, as I always say, adios, au revoir, cheerio, and until a Monday night on Sensum's stream, goodbye for now. Take care of yourselves, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and enjoy the music. Bye just now.
Silently the snow falls, paints a winter scene, swiftly spreads the dark rim, hides a fading autumn green. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, conjure friendships dear to me. Lightly now the breeze flows, disturbing more than just the leaves. But life's much more, then we can know we are one small glow in the eternal flow. Patiently the love grows, lifts the weary heart. Gently now she holds me, melts two worlds once apart. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, usher dreams of you and me. Softly then the breeze blows, disturbing more than just the trees. But love's much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow. Melodies of long ago, songs of innocence, harmonies to soothe the soul, have some consequence. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, awakening joys of you and me. Silently the snow falls, bringing winter symphony. But we're much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow.
So you take care, folks, and I'll speak to you all real soon. Monday, in fact. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye just now.